You felt it. Stepping into a tunnel, a basement, a cave mouth on a hiking trail. The air changes first, then the light drops away, then the sound changes. Your own footsteps get louder, closer, like the space is listening back. Something in you slows down. You'd assume this is just discomfort, some Wurzel, claustrophobia, an instinct to get back to open air, back to daylight, back to safety. Here's the disruption. No. For tens of thousands of years, humans did the opposite. They went in deeper. In 1994, three French explorers, Jean-Marie Chauvet, Eliot Brunel, and Christian Hilaire, were hiking through the Ardèche Gorge in southern France when they felt a draft of air coming from a pile of rubble. They cleared it away and dropped into a cave system now known as Chauvet Pont d'Arc. Inside, across walls that hadn't been touched in millennia, they found more than 1,000 paintings. Lions, rhinoceroses, horses, bears, rendered with a level of anatomical precision that wouldn't be matched again for over 30,000 years. Radiocarbon dating placed the oldest images at roughly 36,000 years old, but the paintings weren't the strangest part. The deepest chamber, over 400 meters from the entrance, contained almost no images of animals people hunted for food. It held predators, cave lions, cave bears, creatures that could kill the artist standing there, drawing them by torchlight in total darkness with no natural light source for the length of a small city block. Nobody lived in these deep chambers. There's no hearths, no food debris, no evidence of daily life that deep in, which means the people who made this art walked deliberately into the most dangerous, disorienting part of the cave, not to survive, but for some other reason entirely. This single site forces a question that reframes as something basic about human nature. Why would a species defined by its instinct for safety choose, again and again, across tens of thousands of years and thousands of kilometers, to go toward the dark instead of away from it? The answer isn't about art at all. It's about what caves did to the human mind. And the deeper the sites researchers uncover, the stranger that answer gets.
In 1990, a teenage explorer named Bruno Kowalszewski was mapping a cave in southwestern France called Bruniquel when he broke through a narrow passage and found something that shouldn't have existed. Deep inside the cave, more than 300 meters from the entrance, sat two ring-shaped structures built from broken stalagmites. Over 400 individual pieces, some stacked and arranged deliberately, forming circles roughly 6.7 meters across. For decades, nobody knew what to make of it. Then in 2016, a team led by French researcher Jacques Joubert used uranium-thorium dating on the calcite that had regrown over the structure. The result, the rings were built roughly 176,000 years ago. That date placed the construction 150,000 years before Homo sapiens is known to have reached that part of Europe. The builders weren't modern humans at all. They were Neanderthals. Traces of fire were found on the stalagmite fragments, burned bone, charred wood. Someone had carried fuel deep into total darkness, far past where daylight reached, and built something that took planning, cooperation, and repeated trips through a cave system with no practical reason to enter that far. Not shelter, not food storage. A structure with no clear survival function, built in the one place on Earth guaranteed to be pitch black year-round for 176 millennia. But here's where it gets stranger. Bruniquel wasn't an isolated case. In 2013, two recreational cavers exploring the Rising Star cave system in South Africa near Johannesburg found a chamber so difficult to reach that paleoanthropologist Lee Berger had to recruit a team of exclusively small-bodied scientists, 6 women, all under 1.5 meters tall, nicknamed the underground astronauts, to fit through a vertical chute just 18 centimeters wide. Inside that chamber, they found the remains of at least 15 individuals of a previously unknown hominin species, Homo naledi, a brain roughly 1/3 the size of a modern human's. No stone tools were found nearby. No evidence the chamber was ever used for daily living, and the only way in was through a passage so narrow, dark, and vertically brutal that reaching it today with headlamps and modern caving gear takes trained cavers hours. That's not the whole story, though. In 2023, Berger's team announced something that split the field: engraved geometric patterns, crosshatched lines, on the chamber walls, alongside evidence the bodies may have been deliberately placed there, not simply washed in or fallen. If that interpretation holds, it would mean a hominin with a brain, 1/3 the size of yours, was carrying its dead through absolute darkness into one of the most inaccessible spaces in the entire cave system. On purpose. 2 species, separated by hundreds of thousands of years and 2 different continents, both choosing the deepest, hardest, most lightless part of a cave to do something that had nothing to do with staying alive. Except there was a problem with treating this as coincidence, because when researchers started measuring what these deep chambers actually do to the human body once you're standing inside one, the pattern stopped looking cultural. It started looking physiological. In the early 2000s, French researcher Igor Reznikov, a specialist in ancient acoustics at the University of Paris-Nanterre, began systematically testing something that cave researchers had noticed but never measured. The painted chambers of Ice Age caves weren't randomly chosen. Reznikov walked through French painted caves, including Neo and Le Portel, humming a single continuous note and mapping where the sound resonated most strongly. The results were consistent. In cave after cave, the paintings clustered precisely at the points of maximum acoustic resonance, locations where a human voice would ring, echo, and amplify almost unnaturally. Blank walls with no acoustic effect were almost never painted, even when they offered better, flatter surface. Whoever chose where to paint wasn't just responding to the rock, they were responding to sound. Separately, neuroscientists studying sensory deprivation have found that extended time in total darkness and silence, conditions that only exist naturally deep inside a cave, measurably alters brain activity. In the 1960s, French geologist Michel Siffre spent 63 days alone in a cave beneath the French Alps with no clock, no light cycle, and no outside contact. As part of a self-experiment studying isolation, his sense of time collapsed. By the end, he was certain only 45 days had passed. His circadian rhythm didn't just shift, it partially detached from any external reference at all. Combine those two findings and a different explanation starts to take shape. A cave isn't just a shelter or a canvas, it's a sensory deprivation chamber with unusual acoustics, built entirely out of stone, that existed millennia before humans understood what sensory deprivation even was. Strip away light, strip away time, add sound that behaves like nothing found on the surface. What's left is an environment that reliably alters human consciousness without any substance, ritual object, or technology required. That reframes Chauvet. It reframes Bruniquel. It reframes a hominin with a brain a third the size of yours, carrying its dead through 18 centimeters of solid rock in absolute darkness. None of them needed a reason rooted in survival. The cave itself was doing something to them the moment they stepped past the reach of daylight, and different species, hundreds of thousands of years apart, seem to have recognized that and returned for it anyway. You don't have access to that kind of darkness anymore. Almost nowhere on the modern surface of the Earth is fully unlit, fully silent, fully unmeasured by a clock. But for most of the time humans have existed, that space was a short walk away, and for reasons that had nothing to do with staying warm or staying fed, your ancestors kept choosing to walk into it